Hello and welcome to the Superconscious podcast. This is episode 10, anniversary day, celebration day. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this episode because we're talking about how to celebrate business, how to have fun in business, how to not lose the zest of life when you're running a business and you are doing something that's coming out of your soul. And so, what do you have to say about that?
And I would say it's not just about business, it's also about life, like how to not, like you said, not lose the zest of life in general, generally speaking. How to keep the flow of life going, because if the flow blocks in any one area of life, it affects all other areas, whether you like it or not. So while you will focus on talking about business, this applies to every area of life, how to unblock and live in pure inspiration and passion in all areas of your life, and how when you make that decision to only live by inspiration and passion, what you're essentially doing is you're setting the standard for yourself that you will not allow any obligation or any compulsion to take over your life, that you will not become a slave to obligation and compulsion, and you will live in the freedom of inspiration and passion, which is basically when you're channeling your soul's code for your life, for your work, for your business, for whatever it is. Your soul already has the plan, and that is what flows through you when you're in inspiration.
Powerful. So I would like to begin with, where did the conversation even start this morning? Would you like to share what happened this morning?
Oh. So basically, I started, like, I have been working on this within myself for many years and have been coming to the culmination of it, where in the last few months, I decided to put an end to all obligations and compulsions in my life. And that decision was not about setting boundaries externally, but it was deciding internally that I'm not going to respond to any obligation and compulsion again. And what that does is that essentially it just starts highlighting and amplifying all these obligations, all these compulsions in your life, that you can no longer ignore them, because when you set that, when you create that decision within yourself, automatically, you start feeling, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. That starts becoming louder and louder till the point you actually stop doing it. So that decision is an initiation of the process. And the more you commit to that, the faster it is. It can happen very quickly. It can also take a very long time. It all depends on how committed you are to practicing that decision every single day and every single moment of your life, in every aspect of your life. And what really inspired me to make that decision was, obviously, like I said, I've been working on this for a long time, and it was not very conscious of, for me, what was inspiring me is that I finally found someone, which is this lovely lady, to who was actually enabling that in me and holding the space for me to live purely from inspiration and passion by loving me when I was not feeling inspired and not feeling passionate. So that was the most crucial shift for me, was that earlier, whenever I would not feel inspiration and passion, I was surrounded by people who would make me feel ashamed, who would make me feel guilty, and who would, talk about things like discipline and the rules of the game. And this is how you have to do it. And if you don't do it this way, your business will fail and you can't, blah, 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 blah. A lot of rules. And then obviously, like, when you hear these kinds of things, even if you're consciously rejecting them, unconsciously, if you're still living in obligation and compulsion, some part of you picks up all of that and starts shaming yourself and guilting yourself. And when I said earlier, they were shaming me or guilting me, it's not them. It's I am taking it on because there's still a part of me that accepts that reality, or that is the way reality functions. But the moment we started being friends and started helping each other and coaching each other and living together and everything started unfolding, both of us were holding the space for each other that we love each other anyways, even if we have a few days off or weeks off where we just don't feel inspired or passionate. It's like, it's okay. Let go, just relax. Who says you have to do anything? And we were both holding the space for each other, and in a very pure way. It was for the first time that we were both actually experiencing that from another person, where earlier it was, even if we managed to create that space for ourselves, not having someone else holding that space was a big uh, missing piece, which both of us did not realize. And when you get that external validation and someone tells you, it's okay, relax, you don't have this obligation to show up all the time 100% with this perfect mask. Like, you can be imperfect. I love you anyway. I love you anyway. I love you anyway. When you keep hearing that, it creates this permission inside you that you start rejecting other people who don't respond to you in that. Suddenly your standards go up because you're like, I don't need to take this shit from you who is telling me that I have to do things this way, because I already have someone who loves me. Because that's the fundamental piece, right? Like, I want to be loved as I am, the way I want to live life, not because I don't want to be loved in this conditional way where only if I show up in a certain way, I will receive love. No, I want to just be loved. So if I suddenly see someone loving me and holding space for me as I am, suddenly my standards can be raised internally, and I can tell myself that I don't need these other people in my life and I don't need to listen to them anymore. So it was today morning was the whole recognition and realization that the of the space that we have been holding each other and how profound the impact of that has been, because now I see myself fully out of obligations and compulsions and living only from passion and inspiration. And it's been a journey. It's been quite a journey with a lots of ups and downs and lots of regressions into obligations and compulsions where it just like it was becoming faster and faster that it was unbearable and I would stop it. So till the point that now even before it comes in, it's like you can't come in anymore. Where earlier it would be already inside and I have to stop it and remove it. Now it's like I can see it coming from a distance and I can just say, this is not my reality anymore.
You are welcome.
And so are you.
And also, I think you just thanked my mother because she was the one who told me, but I love you anyway. There's a story of my mom who, by the way, passed away over 11 years ago. When I was a child, we were driving back from the city, and for whatever reason, I was moody and I was not happy with something. And I kept on saying no about something. I don't remember what it was. And my mom kept on saying, but I love you anyway. And I love you anyway. And I kept on sitting like this, no. And she was like, but I love you anyway. And I love you anyway. And I love you anyway. And over time, as soon as we came back home, I just melted. And I was like, okay, well, that's what unconditional love means. She accepted me for who I was, even if I was moody about something. So thanks to her for this even expression and unconditional love and acceptance and learning to accept other people for who they are. So all of this so deeply resonates with me too. That's also why we're having this conversation, because like you said, there are so many rules of how to live life, how to run a business, how to succeed in whatever it is that you do, how to market yourself, how to present yourself, how to show up. All the hows are like on a rule book that's this huge, and then you open that book and you never stop to living in obligation and compulsion. And you were the first person in my life who was like, you know what? You don't have to do anything. All you need to do is just be you. Just chill. Just chillax, just relax, just connect with your soul, connect with what you really want, connect with what makes you feel excited about life. Give yourself time and space to just crystallize what it is that you want to focus on, how you want to contribute to the world, how you want to live your life, how do you want to present yourself, express yourself, what you want to create, etc., etc. So that permission was so profound because it was something so out of my entire life construct. Like it was so out of anything that I ever was familiar with. I was like, what? I can just be me and just chill and life is gonna just continue? Like I will not suffer and I will not, be punished and I will not I don't know, have struggles with survival and stuff like that. Like, really, I can just chill and do nothing and, lay in the hammock and contemplate and meditate and just literally do nothing and relax. When I received that permission from you, it was a completely new reality open for me. And that's when I realized that so many people, especially in the world of business, when people go from maybe corporate world, for example, or art or something like that, and then they start running a business and making a living from coaching or whatever it is that they do, whatever it is that you do, there's this whole notion of you have to do it the right way because there is like a template of how things are supposed to work in order to succeed, in order to make a living, in order to go to the next level, in order to be seen, in order to be visible, in order to XYZ. And then I was like, wait a second, but actually, what if I don't want to follow these rules? What if I just want to do it my way? And in fact, before you, there was one coach who kept on saying that I also worked with since now 3 years or so, who kept on saying that the most powerful way to run your own business is to do it your way, because that is when you unleash that power that is so fully in alignment with who you truly are and with your soul that there's no such thing as obligation anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. You always are so in alignment and an inspiration that the only things that you are doing are the things that you are excited about. You feel like, I want to get up and go create. I want to get up and go do this thing. And when she was talking about it, I was like, oh my goodness. So I don't need to do all these, these gazillion of things that all the marketeers are teaching, how to have an email list and to show up on social media and to be consistent and all these rules of how you're supposed to be visible. All of these rules, when they dropped, I realized that only once you give yourself permission, because there's one thing to be given permission by another person, so by this coach or by you, but it's another level to give yourself the permission to not have to show up a certain way, to not have to do things a certain way, to just drop all the obligations and be like, you know what? I don't want an email list. It just doesn't click for me. I just don't feel excited to write emails. Okay, give yourself permission to do that. Give yourself permission to do only the things that are absolutely in full alignment with what truly excites you. Maybe that's making videos like this, for example. Maybe it's, I don't know, going on live or something like that.
And even to give examples from other professions, like writers published or like getting published is such a prison for many people because, oh, you got this contract, now you have this obligation that you have to write certain number of words per day to deliver this manuscript at a certain time and this. And for many writers, they experience either burnout or, creativity blocks or writer's block or whatever you want to call it. And suddenly the inspiration is not flowing. And why is it not flowing? There's a reason it's not flowing. And then, you have to push yourself and force yourself and you have to get into discipline and you have to wake up at a certain time of day and you have to do things in this very robotic, methodical manner, and maybe your soul's way of doing things is totally different. And who knows that if you give yourself that permission, what magic can unfold from that. I want to just talk about two things that came up. One, I will continue this topic and I'll come back to the other one later. One is there's this very good story about two brothers who have to make a pyramid for a king, and the king tells him, if you make the pyramid within 3 years, you get this fortune and you'll have your own kingdom. If you don't, you're slaughtered, you die. Like that was the contract that they were getting into knowingly, because they wanted a fortune, they wanted some way to make money, and that's how they decided. So the first brother goes and starts in this very mechanical, methodical way. I have 3 years to do it. I have to lay these many stones per day. In the beginning, he's supercharged. The first layer of the pyramid gets built within, let's say, a month. And he's super excited. Wow, I have accomplished so much. Now comes the second layer. And the second layer requires lifting stones to the next level. So he has to develop more muscles. So he has to train more. And then, okay, he starts building the second layer. That takes, let's say, 2 months. But he's making progress. At the same time, the other brother looks like he's doing nothing. The site is empty. No stones have been moved. And the first brother is telling him, what are you doing? You're going to fail and you're going to be killed by the king and blah, blah, blah. All of this fear conditioning. And the other brother is just in his workshop working on some machine. And he's like, why are you wasting your time on this machine? And like, none of this makes sense. This is how you build a pyramid. And he goes on his way and he continues. And a year later, he's built 3 stories. And it's becoming even tougher because the stones have to be raised even higher and getting impossible. So now he has to hire other people. He needs help. And again, in this mechanical way, pushing, pushing, forcing, forcing. After 2 years, he has only built less than half the pyramid. And it's like, will I be able to make it or not? And by the end of the third year, it's almost not built. But what happens in the last few months before the third year, suddenly the second brother brings this huge machine that can carry stones and lift stones to any height. And all of a sudden, things are happening very quickly. And the first layer is built, the second layer is built, and blah, 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 blah. And within a month or 2 months, the full pyramid is ready. And the first brother is quite far from completion. And what happens? The second brother gets the reward, becomes a king, and the first brother, we know what happens. So this is the thing, is that when we take on these rules from pure conditioning, when we operate under fear, under obligation, under discipline, compulsion, whatever you want to call it, you will burn out. You will force yourself, grind yourself to dust, basically, because you're not listening to that inspiration from your soul. You're doing things in this very mechanical, robotic way. But when you listen to that soul's inspiration, it may take you on a very tangential path that has nothing to do with your goal. But what happens is that the magic happens within a month because all the inspiration is flowing, all the preparation has been done, all the foundation has been laid for that burst of inspiration to come, that it doesn't take you 3 years to build up in a pyramid, it takes 1 month. It doesn't take you 1 year of writing every day 500 words to write that book. It just takes you maybe a week. Like the book for which I have received the most like the best kind of feedback is a book that I wrote in 4 hours. And there are other books, like there's another book which I've been struggling for weeks now because the inspiration is just not flowing. And basically 2 weeks back, I just decided I'm done with this book. I'm not writing it until I am fully in the inspiration for it. That's the difference, is that because I know what it is to write an inspiration, how easily it flows, and how much more powerful it is when it comes from that place, because of the feedback. I've written several booklets, but for that one, the feedback I've gotten is tremendously different. So I know the state I have to be in for it to just flow. And now what I'm using my time for is building that state of inspiration. So I'm not wasting my time writing 100 words a day, 500 words, 3 million words per day. I'm using my time to work on why am I not in flow? Why am I not in inspiration? Let me clear the energy. Let me work on myself. And the day will come when I'm in inspiration and boom, it flows. And it happened last night. Basically started rewriting the book and the whole preface came out in 10 minutes, where the earlier preface I was working on for 5 days, reworking, blah, blah, blah. But this one, I just know this is perfect. This is what it is.
I love this story. It's such a powerful story that it just reminded me of somebody I heard recently speak about how people just tick boxes like, oh, I will just show up, I tick the box and I move on, even though it doesn't have this potency, it doesn't have this essence of your inspiration of what you really really want to say, what, like, how you're not charging whatever it is that you're creating with your purity. And when you are patient enough, essentially that's what happened, right? You gave yourself time and space to just flow and float as well, where you were like, okay, you know what, if I need to take some time and space, then I will do so. And that gives you the time and space to get into the state, into that frequency where you don't have to just tick boxes anymore. But when you do show up, you show up with full power, with fullness of who
Authority.
you really are, with authority, with inspiration, with joy, with excitement, with all of these emotions that are very high frequency. And so I love that story. It's such a powerful wake up call for a lot of people to be like, you know what, there's another way, there's a better way. And maybe for some people they will still continue doing the way they were doing. If that works for them, that's great. But for the ones who are listening to this and they resonate with it, it's like, ah, there's permission, there's a different way, there's a different reality. I can live my life in a different way. I can choose to do things in a completely different way.
And about giving yourself time and space, like there's a lot that happens in that time and space. It's not just sitting on the couch and watching TV, which I have done for many years. And that's not the real thing. It's like, okay, that's also a way of giving yourself time and space. And if it's a part of that, it's fine. But there's a lot happening, which is feeling the discomfort of all your obligations and compulsions dying. This is what you need to experience, is that when you hold that standard for yourself, that I'm only going to act in inspiration and passion, what you invoke is the death of your obligations and compulsions, and they will come up. Expect them to come up. There's a lot of discomfort in it because you will feel that angst, that anxiety from within. Oh, I must do something. I should do something. I've not written my number of words per day. I've not posted today. I have not created today. I have not reached out to my cold calling list.
I didn't tick any boxes
I
on the
did not
to-do
tick
list.
basically that. Like I did not tick my boxes. That creates a lot of anxiety within because those programs are constantly talking in your head saying this is what you must do. The space that you create is to create distance from these programs, from those voices, and say, I am done listening to you. Fuck off.
It's also helpful to identify where these voices are coming from. Maybe it was your father who was forcing you to finish your homework on time when you were a child. Maybe it was a teacher. Maybe it was your mother. Maybe it was your grandparents. Maybe it was a sibling. Like it must come from somewhere. When you identify it, it's like, oh, now I see where this voice is coming from. Now I can choose to listen to a different voice because that other voice also exists.
Yeah. And like I have done that kind of work also, and that's very helpful because putting a face and a name to that is very helpful to say, I'm done listening to you. You are out of my life. There are other ways to do it also. Like basically, when you're entering into that silence of yourself, suddenly you start hearing all of these voices. You don't just directly go to the silence. You start listening to all the voices in your head telling you what you must do. And you can also just say, I'm done listening. Just fuck off. I'm taking my space. And slowly, 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 those voices start dying. And especially if you don't feed them, but if you keep regressing and feeding them, then they will wake up again. But it's not a problem. If you regress, it's okay. That's just part of the process. Wake up again, do it again. wake up again, do it again, till one day you're just out of that. And then you realize in that space of silence, there's so much potency, and your soul actually gets to shine through fully. This is what we are creating, a space for you to shine through fully. And like I said, one of the most powerful realizations for me this morning was the importance of the space holder. So finding that space holder is also a powerful way, but of course they cannot do the work for you. Like she was also saying, finally you need to give yourself that permission. Finally, you need to learn to hold space for yourself wherever you are and in whatever situation you are. The space holders help because suppose you have a partner at home, you tell them, like this is what I'm deciding to do. I want your support. Because maybe you have unconsciously programmed your partner to be the one who holds the stick over you. Oh, you are not doing this. Oh, you're not doing that. They are adding to the pressure.
That's such a great point. Subconsciously, unconsciously picked up like a partner who is reinforcing those same old beliefs.
Yeah, and you are essentially also programming the partner by all the time, telling them, oh, I'm supposed to do this, oh, I'm supposed to do that. So basically you're telling them this is what I'm supposed to do. So if I'm not doing it, punish me. But if you stop creating the program and you tell your partner, I'm choosing to do a different way, I want your support, this is how you can support me. Doesn't need to be a battle, it doesn't need to be a fight, doesn't need to be a boundary. Oh, like I'm setting a boundary, no one will put obligation and compulsion on. No, it's an inner decision. You communicate that decision, and the right people will support you and trust that you're being supported. Create that support for yourself. If you can't find it, find more creative ways to create that support for yourself. And for me, that's like a closure on that point. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, there's one very important piece for someone who wants to live that way is to believe that it's possible to create abundance that way. Because I think in the world we live in, there's a lot of misconception that you have to be disciplined and you have to be consistent and you have to do things a certain way, and only then you will actually thrive. And my invitation for you is to find and search and find examples of people who have done things differently, who have done things non-linearly, who have done and or succeeded in ways that are not typical in any way. And for me, one of the first people that were like that was one other coach that I was working with, who is a projector in human design, which, by the way, is also, we both are projectors in human design. And the whole idea of her business was, I will do everything the way a projector in human design is supposed to do it, which means it goes in ebbs and flows. I will not show up if I don't feel like it, and I will only show up when I do feel like it. I will trust the flow of life. I will trust inspiration. I will wait for invitations instead of forcing something and basically putting myself out there in this forceful way. I will show up as a lighthouse and I will wait for people to come and notice me and recognize me and reward me as a result of that. So when I saw how she succeeded building an inconsistent business, that was just the very first dip in the ocean, noticing that there are plenty more people like that who don't live out of obligation and compulsion, and actually they live the complete opposite life. They live completely differently, they function completely differently, they operate completely differently, and yet they succeed, if not the same at the same level, then usually even better. And why? Because again, they gave themselves permission to go with the flow and have fun, instead of being like, oh, I have to do this thing and it's also serious. And basically they lose this playfulness of life, playfulness of running a business. Just like I also, to also share a bit of my personal journey in my business experience in the last over 4 years, is that I also at some point lost that playfulness, and my relationship with my business became this obligation, like, oh, so I have to show up on LinkedIn every day and I have to share a piece of content every day. And if it doesn't perform a certain way, then it's not great. So I have to constantly keep on improving something. And yes, it is about learning. Yes, it is about improving things. But again, it's a matter of, do you feel inspired to create that stuff? Do you feel inspired to improve and learn and so on? Or are you doing it just for the sake of, I will tick yet another box? And so all of this to say that it is possible, and you need to choose to believe that you are going to thrive and succeed and create abundance in your life in this other way. Especially if you are tired of living this old way, which didn't work, or maybe it did work, but you hit the ceiling and it's not satisfying. It feels like something is missing. You're maybe not fulfilled with your results or with how you show up. Maybe you're not quite satisfied with who you're being in the process. And now you're like, you know what? I want to be a different person. I want to have more fun. I want to have more joy. I want to really, truly enjoy what I'm doing on a daily basis. And I want to not be attached to the end result, but I really, truly want to enjoy the journey of entrepreneurship, of running a business, of having fun, making money, by being myself. And when you give yourself that permission because you believe that it's possible, that's when the doors open.
And to add to that, like she said, find examples of people who have succeeded in the way you want to live your life, because they exist. Forget the myth that it has to be done this way. There are plenty of examples in your field also. May not be directly exactly showing up that way, but when you identify what it is you want to do and how you want to live, then you will start seeing examples of that. Maybe it doesn't look the same on the surface, but for sure, there are those examples. And one of the earlier points you had mentioned, which I just want to look back to, is, this survival mode, that a lot of people are living in survival mode, no matter how much you have. Like, we know stories of a lot of people who have spoken about this also, that they can have millions and billions, but they don't feel that it's enough. And they're still in that survival of, oh, it can all disappear. Oh, what will happen to me? Or this, or that. So survival mode is not based on how much you have. It's not based on all of these external factors. It's again a decision that's within you. Survival mode is a decision within yourself, that I choose to live a certain way. I choose to live a different way. What is that different way? Is that I am fine. I am fine with what I have. Once my basic needs are met, I am fine. And that's all it is required to make that switch. And even when your basic needs may be threatened, it's like there is something within you which knows that if I'm not operating in this way of neediness and desperation, I can make the switch that I will be fine. I am fine. I am fine. And I'll figure a way out. I will figure a way out is when you go out of survival mode. Survival mode is, I don't know if it will work. I don't know if I can cross that and get what I want. It's always, I don't know. Whereas I will figure a way out is you're living in the consciousness that everything is fine. And that can become the base for the next level, which is where your soul's code comes through with abundance. So your soul's code cannot come through when you're in survival mode. You have to change the base for that to I am fine. And then the soul has the code for abundance. And if you allow it to unfold through you in whatever way that shows up, for some people that may be like, supercharged discipline and going the way. And for some people that may just be like sitting back and allowing inspiration to flow whenever it flows. But when you allow that truly, and you're in alignment, you're in integrity with yourself, and you are honoring it all, abundance is there for sure, because the soul lives in the space of infinity and eternity. So whatever it brings, whatever it manifests, comes from the realm of absolute abundance.
I want to also share a few examples of what happens when you switch from survival mode to I'm fine. When you're like, you know what? I trust that the universe has my back. There's no fight against the universe. I actually trust it. It's somehow still going to turn out well. One example comes to mind. Somebody we know had $10 in her bank account. Next day, she had $2,000 in her bank account suddenly, even though she had no idea how it was going to happen. And the deadline for it was what, 2 days later or something?
4 days, yeah.
4 days later.
She had given herself that I want to get this amount of money by 4 days later.
Another example, somebody desperately needed to move after being robbed in her apartment and needed 100K deposit for this new apartment. Had no freaking clue how it was going to happen, and bam, it landed out of nowhere. Third example, just yesterday I came across this example of someone who made 100K, over 100K, I think it was 120 or 30 or something like that, in 58 days. And it was, again, out of this, you know what? I know that I'm safe. I know everything is great. I know it's going to unfold well. I'm not coming and working from a place of lack or desperation or neediness or attachment or anything like that. I'm just trusting. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying the process. I know it's all going to be fine. Also, don't forget that you always have a lot of support in your life. And this universe is so abundant. It has so much for you. All you need to do is allow it. All you need to do is receive it. So if you're being in this needy space, in this survival mode, then you're just rejecting the support. And when you relax, when you allow, when you align with yourself, with your soul, then you actually allow the abundance to come through.
Basically, stop fighting yourself. This is essentially the message, is stop fighting yourself, because you are the universe, you are the matrix, you are reality. So if you think that something is against you, it's you who is against it also. It's you who is against yourself, essentially. You are fighting instead of going in the direction where the universe is pushing you. Go in that direction and see how easily things happen. All these examples that she gave, trusting the universe is basically what it's just saying, I am fine right now. I am fine right now. I have seen examples of this in my life where, because, okay, just before I give that example, what are you doing essentially when you're saying I am fine is that you are relaxing your nervous system. You're calming down and you're entering into the silence where you can listen for your soul's code of where is the inspiration leading me. And when I have done that in my life, money has appeared out of nowhere. Like, it was just, okay, listen to this. This is what my soul is telling me, go do this thing. I start doing this thing. A week later, bunch of money appears.
Which is very important point to make also. It's not just about sitting and doing nothing. If you download something and you have this nudge to go and take action and go and do something about it, then you actually do have to follow through. Because a lot of people feel like, oh, well, but it's not going to land out of nowhere. Indeed, you need to listen and go and do it.
Listen and act, but act only on that inspiration, not on the other voices in your head which are telling you you have to do this, you have to do it. That inspiration voice is not telling you you have to do it. It is calling you to do it because this is excitement, this is joy, this is fun. I know I will love this.
And this is when it becomes easy and effortless and just really so much fun to live that way and to create that way and to run a business that way, instead of like, oh, I need to do all these things and I can't wait for the work day to be over and I can't wait for the weekend and I can't wait for the holiday. It's like your life becomes so much more exciting when you approach it that way.
Yeah, your soul calls you through curiosity and playfulness, never through obligation and compulsion. So wherever you're curious, like when you listen, wherever your curiosity is leading you, answer that and see how magical and fun life is there.
That's it for today. We feel complete, perfection. Go and listen to your intuition and act on it and have fun. And we will see you in the next episode.
And if you have any questions, you have ideas, you want to ask us something for another episode, you can drop it in the comments and we'll consider it. See you next time. Or you will see us next time.